I'd like to share the story and vision of Woodchurch Methodist Church, the beacon on the hill. Woodchurch began as many farmers' fields sparsely populated, with Holy Cross, Church of England, being there since doomsday, literally. Before the Second World War, a council estate began to be built on Woodchurch, and a small group of Methodists began to worship in a tin hut. And they were based just about where Asda is as you come off the M53. Post-war, the estate continued to grow, and the Methodists decided to build a church in the centre of the estate. It was opened in 1958 by a deaconess, and the estate has been served by many deacons. When it was opened, its purpose was stated as being for the sake of the souls on the Woodchurch estate. In the mid-60s, St Michael's Catholic Church would open, and the three churches would work well together over many years. The Methodists became a beacon of light and hope on the Woodchurch estate, transforming lives, body, mind and soul. Over the years, the church ebbed and flowed, but in the 80s and the 90s, the estate went through some rough times. In 1982, Wesley Grange was opened in the church's back garden. In 1998, the circuit decided to appoint a mission and development worker to serve the Woodchurch. This post was for 20 years. It began as a part-timer post, but eventually was full-time. Over that period, the estate began to improve. There was lots of investment on the estate. Members of the church were integral in getting the Carbridge Centre built on the edge of the estate. The church centre began to work in partnership with many groups, and many would use the premises. The beacon began to shine brightly. Lives were being transformed, body, mind and soul. Latterly, a social supermarket and hub were opened, and Pemberton Organic Planters just on our very doorstep. Then the worker retired. At the same time, other resources began to be pulled from the estate. The leisure centre and swimming pool were lost, the library shut, variety of youth work lost its funding, the Carbridge and the hub have also begun to struggle. During this time, COVID also struck. And so the beacon began to be dispersed into the community. The majority of the members live on the Woodchurch estate. In September 2021, Jackie became the presbyter. Woodchurch was one of her 5 churches in a half-time appointment. I also joined the circuit with a remit for serving some of the deprived areas on the Wirral, but also with an eye on the connectional agenda of church in the margins and new places for new people. When I first arrived, I was on a significant phased return, and so it was decided that I would focus on the Woodchurch estate. When I arrived, the church was tentatively beginning to gather. But it became apparent that some of the key workers had been lost through COVID. Those that returned were tired and disillusioned from losing their worker. We managed to gather many, but some were now unable to return. Due to COVID and the cost of living crisis, we began to realise that the estate was beginning to struggle. Gang activity was on the rise, and with many of the provisions now having been lost, the estate was in decline. As a church, we also realised that we were struggling to fulfil some of the governance, the safeguarding and the finances, struggling to see oversee the day-to-day running of the building and carry out pastoral care. But despite that, the heart for mission in the community and their purpose of being a beacon for the sake of the souls on the Woodchurch estate had not been lost. At this point, Jackie moved on, and Noel arrived as the presbyter. We began to explore God's plans, pushing doors and rebuilding partnerships. We managed to secure a grant from the council to open a community cafe, and so we appointed a cafe manager. Groups were beginning to use the centre again, and so the beacon began to shine. There are still few workers. Much of the work is quite reliant on myself being present and carrying out much of the work. But the vision of growing a beacon of light and hope for the estate has not been lost. But in order to make that happen, we need to address 4 areas. We need to look at the governance, the finances, safeguarding, GDPR, the general day-to-day leadership. We need to do some building work. The building was updated about 15 years ago, but it needs some TLC, and we need to do a little bit of work to make it more welcoming and accessible to everybody, to make sure that we can use all the spaces most effectively and that we can address some of the environmental impact of the building. We also need to secure the cafe and church centre, making sure that the cafe can run past its initial 1-year funding, so we can use that space as an opportunity for outreach, and that we can use the centre to serve the community and be a place where lives are transformed, body, mind and soul. But importantly, we also need to grow the prayer and discipleship of both the current church body, but also by exploring new ways of doing prayer and discipleship that will be relevant to the new people using the beacon. Key to doing this is building a team. Part of this will happen through the circuit's Merging Churches strategy, but we also need to strengthen the core team at Woodchurch. So alongside Noel and myself and the cafe manager post, I'm proposing that we appoint a new Church in the Margins pioneer. The circuit appoint this post as soon as possible. The vision for this post very much fits in with the wider church's strategy of having a Church in the Margins project in every circuit by 2025. This is a developing post. It's about growing and equipping a new pioneer leader from within a community on the economic margins. This is different to the New Places, New People pioneer projects, where a pioneer is parachuted in to lead a project. Research has shown that in areas on the economic margins, that they are most authentic and relevant when led by someone within that community. And so this role is about developing a place of welcome and hospitality. It's about growing a strong volunteer team. It's about partnering for pastoral care and for mission. It's about pioneering new ways of praying and discipleship. It's about promoting and raising awareness of all that is going on at the Beacon. And therefore, my role over the next couple of years would be to support that new worker in that initial 2-year period, so that that person can develop and grow to become that pioneer leader. After the initial 2 years, we would hope that the governance would be solid as we become part of a church on multiple sites, that the building work would be complete and we would be a welcoming and hospitable place with a building that is serving its full potential. We would hope that the new shoots from the cafe and the church centre were continuing to grow, and that new people were joining the church and serving the vision. And that new ways of prayer and discipleship that were relevant to the people of the Woodchurch estate were being developed, and that the Beacon was thriving and shining. At this point, I would begin to transition away from Woodchurch into other areas of the circuit. And the Beacon would be a place of light and hope, transforming lives, body, mind and soul.